So Wally, we're back. This one I'm kind of excited about because it's this new acronym that I thought I kind of was gaining a grasp of.
Yeah.
But then you flipped it on me. So there's more to it than I thought. So the acronym's VUCA.
It is.
So.
Or is it VUCA?
I mean, I guess it depends on where you're from.
So I spoke for an ABC chapter a couple of months ago, and they titled the presentation, "What the Vuck is VUCA?" So I don't know if it's VUCA or VUCA, but it's VUCA, and leave it at that.
Yeah. So give us, because I didn't realize that there's kind of two.
Yeah.
There's like the how would you explain the two differences?
Well, there's the original VUCA,
VUCA,
and then somewhere in the last couple of years, somebody came up with what's the antidote?
Okay, that's what you call it, the antidote.
Yeah.
All right. So what is VUCA, and maybe what is the antidote, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time on VUCA itself, and then on the antidote as well.
So the words themselves, VUCA, and we'll give some context after we give the words. That this is the environment we're in. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
And this came from?
Actually came from the Army.
Wait, hold on. A Marine just gave the Army credit for something?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're all on the same team, man. It's quite all right. But the thought process was Berlin Wall comes down, 1988. I was in at the time, so clearly I'm the reason the Berlin Wall came down.
Oh, yeah.
Early 90s, Soviet Union is no longer the threat that it was militarily. Clearly still a threat. And it was, well, okay, what battle space, what environment do we have to be ready to compete in?
Yeah.
And the kind of buzzword in the 80s was fight outnumbered and win, because we knew we were going to be outnumbered on the plains of Europe.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Army War College and a couple of really smart guys were tasked with figuring the future.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the new norm? What's the new normal?
Yeah, and they came up with volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And again, we'll define those a little bit. And the buzzword now is win in a complex world. Fight outnumbered and win. Fight. Win in a complex world suggests we may never have to fight.
Yeah.
If we do it correctly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was their model. And from that vision, just like we do with a company, we craft strategy and tactics, right? So that mentality or mantra crafted in the early 90s. And if you think about it, the world we live in today, post 9/11, post COVID,
yes,
indirect, non-direct threats as opposed to the Russians and the Chinese launching, nukes at us. And when I stand in front of construction leaders and executives and we talk about this, about 80% of them are going, yeah, that kind of sounds pretty right. Yeah.
I mean, so let's just go through it one more time. So volatile.
Volatile. So we don't necessarily know what's coming next, right? The pace of change is fast. Volatility.
Yeah.
Right?
And that never happens in construction.
No, never at all, right? Uncertain, meaning what I thought was coming next may not be what's coming next.
Yeah.
Right? So the predictability of outcomes, less so.
So one thing about that, and I'm not going to go too far down this, but I think it's interesting. Sometimes I hear uncertain, like I'll hear from superintendents or project managers, they kind of acknowledge, hey, it's volatile and uncertain, so we don't need to plan that well. A lie.
We're going to go down a
that's a lie,
rabbit
right?
hole here. First of all, there's uncertain and unknowable.
Yep.
Right? The conditions that are going to be experienced on a construction project are very knowable.
Yeah.
Right? They could be an unforeseen condition. But
it's
when we
still
come
knowable.
upon the condition, we've seen it 1,000 times before. So the uncertainty here is we really don't know what's coming next. Whereas I go on a dirt job, there's a pretty good likelihood I'm going to find rock.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah. or water or whatever it is.
Whatever, right? These are all things we've discovered before, as opposed to getting in there and finding helium. Like, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah. Which would be cool.
The thing about planning, and Randy, the whole thing's going to change. Why bother to plan in the first place? Well, what I would tell you is the power is in the planning and not the plan.
Yeah.
Right? No plan survives contact with the enemy. We digress there, but it's in the planning that we come up with plans B, C, and D, and E.
Perfect.
So really, It's the flexibility of your plans. So let's just put it in the context of some friends with BuildWit.
Yeah.
The Navy SEALs are going to move into a complex, uncertain environment, right, when they go on a mission. Hell, that's just not planned.
Yeah. Doesn't work.
Right, doesn't work. So volatility and uncertainty.
Yep. So although volatile, uncertain, which I think everyone would say relates to construction,
Yep.
definitely not an excuse not to plan.
Not in my world.
Yeah. All right. So the C,
Complexity.
complex.
So there's complexity means there's kind of like a cause and effect thing here, right?
Yeah.
So the way General Perkins, great video on YouTube, by the way, about General Perkins. He's the kind of the guy. There's a couple Perkins videos. You find him on YouTube, and he'll talk about how they crafted this VUCA strategy. If you open up a Swiss watch, is it complicated or complex? And the answer is, it's complicated. Like you get all these movements, right? All these gears, all those Swiss movements, but you can kind of dissect it and figure it out. Cause and effect is fairly easy to, can be determined.
Yep.
Complexity says, I can't determine cause and effect. That there are things happening that do not fit my traditional model. So there's complicated, we can deal with this, may require consultants or research or academics, somebody not within the house of your construction company, but we can go get that guy. Then there's complexity of, this happened and that happened, and I have no idea how that happened, right? And then ambiguity, which just says that, it's kind of, if you're looking out, things are a little bit blurry, a little bit tougher to discern, right? Like you're in a fog, so to speak. So you're moving down the road at 100 miles an hour, but you can't quite, on the road, you know where you're going, but man, it's still a little bit hazy out there. And the traditional sensing methods we had may no longer be valid.
I mean, I think when I hear ambiguity, right away, one of the things I think of is just the plans in which we build now.
Right.
There's a lot of ambiguity in it, but that's not an excuse to not deliver the product, right?
You still have to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the classic, that's a field coordination issue,
Yeah.
right? Well, no, it's a design issue, and how are we going to do this wall or retaining wall, or whatever? Once again, that's probably not complex.
Nope.
The plans could, in fact, be ambiguous. Yeah. But again, the thought process is how do we get there, and we'll plan for that.
That's good. So complexity versus complicated.
Yes.
Versus simple.
Right. So you move through simple to complicated to complex to chaotic.
Yeah.
Right. And we definitely don't want to be
there. So complex, though, you said, hey, complicated, usually
there's somebody
to figure out. Complexity, I mean, VUCA stands for complexity.
Yeah.
So it's acknowledging that there will be things that at times we can't figure out.
You're going to have to in the moment.
Yeah.
But as it happens and as you look down the road, no way you could have figured this out.
Yeah. And maybe that doesn't happen quite as much in construction.
Concur.
But it does happen.
Yeah.
One division of our company does drilling, and so there are times where you can't see down where you're drilling.
Right.
You can just kind of hypothesize.
Feel your way.
Like, hey, we've been in ground conditions like this before. We've had similar things. This is probably what's happening, but ultimately, we don't know.
Yeah.
And we've had times where we brought in consultants, and everyone's like, look, we have no clue what's going on down there.
Yeah.
But
it's probably complicated because you have been in situations like it before.
Yeah.
You just don't know what this one has.
It's true. So there's it's
a nuance.
The nuance is very small there.
It is.
But nonetheless, this VUCA is very relatable to construction.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so we know that we operate in this harsh environment.
Yep.
I think everybody recognizes we don't give up. So, buildings are getting built, highways are being built, canals, roads, whatever, it's all happening. So, what do we do with it? Do we just say like, well, it's harsh.
Yeah.
Construction industry sucks
Always
because
been that way.
this is how it's been, or
Get over it.
can we do something with it?
We can, but let's just talk about what the environment does to organizations and to individuals.
Awesome.
uncertainty. So remember that when your wife first got pregnant and you go to then Babies R Us, right? And you have the list of things, right? And you need a changing table and you need diapers and you need towels and you need a stroller, right? So you're cruising down and you turn that aisle to the stroller aisle, and how many strollers were there?
Like both sides of the aisle the whole way, and prices were
right. So listen,
shocking.
So you turn down that aisle and you look and you're like, oh my, screw it, I'll come back later, right? It creates paralysis, right? Uncertainty creates paralysis in organizations and in individuals, right? So I can't see what's coming next. I don't know what's coming next. Heck, I just won't do anything. Well, we know that's not the right solution, right? But fear is part of that. So we create this paralysis in the organization, values dilution potentially, because we don't really know what's coming at us, and oh my God, we have to be everything to everybody. Actually, maybe you only need to be one thing to one person or one thing to one industry. So I guess what I'm saying is this VUCA environment invades the culture.
Yeah.
Right? And then fractures the culture. So, how do we fight it?
Yeah.
Well, we throw another VUCA at it.
Well, what I think is interesting though is like you talk about the paralysis, and I think, you know, I always try to make sure, hey, you know, I've been in the industry, I've been in the jobs. How does this relate? Is it relatable? What would they say?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people say, well, in construction we don't get paralyzed. Like we get stuff done. Like that's what we do. Mm-hmm. Which I would agree.
How long you been waiting for that RFI answer?
But well, that's what I say. But I would say the paralysis just looks different.
Yes.
And like sometimes there's paralysis through planning. Like something comes up, and like all of a sudden it's like we can't do anything until we all are on the same page, and it takes 2 weeks to get on the same page. And it's like we probably could have had one or two people just decide, and we would have came to the same conclusion.
Right. No, you're right. Buildings are getting built.
Yep.
Things are getting done. But
there is a level of paralysis, and it
Yep.
may not look like we're all just not doing anything, but the decisions aren't being made as quickly or as effectively as they could have. There's a level of paralysis.
So, oh my gosh, has technology made this better or worse? Right? You can be up there on your laptop at the job level looking at the cost of riprap on a project. Like, oh my God, right? Technology has probably not helped us in this case. And communication, I remember a buddy of mine was on a mission to rescue a downed pilot. And this was pre-Iraq, so there weren't that many. And the colonel gets on the airplane. Like, dude, you don't need to be there. Right? Well, oh, by the way, who's on the radio? DC's on the radio. Right? So this level of technology has enabled supervision at such a close level. It has enabled micromanagement at such a close level. We've all seen those CSIs or whatever where they're like following the guys doing the mission. I'm not sure that's exactly helpful. That helps create paralysis too, because my boss is right over there and it's easier for him to make a decision than for me to make a decision.
And it's easier for the boss or the executive to be paralyzed in their functions.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I was just having this conversation this morning with somebody. I was just saying, oftentimes you get elevated in your leadership, so you become the senior leader or whatever it is, but you'll revert back to what you did.
Right.
And then it's no wonder that when it comes to strategy, you're failing. Right? When you get to the senior level and all of a sudden you're sitting in a meeting and somebody brings up, hey, we don't have any work in 8 months from now. Well, in my opinion, I tell people every level you come up in leadership is like a direct correlation for how far advanced you should be thinking.
Totally agree.
But sometimes you get in those meetings and people are like, oh yeah, we're gonna work in 8 months, but this job needs help. So
tell me about the change.
I'm gonna go over here.
Right?
Yeah.
We're gonna get those change orders collected.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, there.
Nobody's working on strategy, long-term strategy for how are we gonna keep working in front of our people.
This is comfortable. This is tactical. This is black and white.
So I think all of that, I mean, to me, that's the volatility, that's the unknown, that's creating paralysis in a leader who maybe he hasn't been trained well or she hasn't been trained well, so that's part of it, and we have to own that. But the reality is that paralysis may look like, instead of what is our long-term strategic goals, what markets will we operate in, what industries, what relationships are we developing, they're like, I'm going to go back to working on change order log and making sure we get paid.
Yeah, strategic planning in the construction industry is a joke. Sorry, it's really business planning. Right? When I get in a room with a client and they say they're doing strategic planning and they're talking the budget for next year or the year after, no, that's a budgeting exercise. Strategic planning is, who will we serve in 5 years? Right? They're totally different. Now, the challenge is they have the same people doing them, so you got to change a hat, right? But in 20 years, I've been in less strategic planning than my clients would believe. Because they're really doing budgeting and business planning as opposed to true strategy.
Yeah, agreed. But I think that's a form of paralysis. Some of it's lack of training, but some of it's a form of paralysis. Okay, so now what's the antigen or antidote of VUCA?
Vision.
Okay.
And throw some values in there as well.
Yep.
Understanding of your world, your house and the world. Clarity and communication. I got to be able to get it out there. And then agility. Once it's out there, I have to be able to react.
Good. Those are good. I like them. I'm thinking back to, like, here I am, maybe we have somebody who's joining us and they're thinking, all right, COVID-19, I operated my business in the Northwest or West Coast or East Coast where shutdowns were quite significant. That was obviously volatile, obviously unknown. There was arguably complexity to that because we had never seen anything like that before. And maybe their business is barely getting by right now. So I think as we go through this exercise of vision, so give it to me again.
Understanding.
Vision / values, understanding.
Clarity, communications, and agility.
Let's maybe kind of think through that in mind of maybe somebody who's experiencing that. I think that's obviously an extreme example, but I think it's a good one because if you can survive all of that through this process, I think it gives a lot of people hope when maybe it's something a little bit simpler like, hey, we haven't got paid by one person and it's tightened our cash.
Well, another example of complexity these days is climate change.
Yeah.
Right, look, I'm not going to debate
who's causing it.
The world is getting warmer.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we get partial credit for it. Maybe we don't as humans. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the world is getting warmer. It's 120 degrees up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows what's coming next.
Correct.
Right? That's a complex environment. What does that mean? What are the implications for that?
Yeah.
The Lake Mead and a couple of Salt Lake, all-time lows. Okay, we need to figure out water. Oh, what about the arsenic dust coming off of that? What are you talking about? Right? All that runoff. Nobody ever planned for this one.
Yeah.
Right? There's your example of complexity. And in that, is there an opportunity for contractors?
I would think so.
There is, right?
Yeah.
Environmental remediation, those kinds of things. Well, if I was doing this strategy 5 years ago, maybe I'd be ready for that. Or maybe I'd be ready for disaster recovery in fire-impacted areas.
Yeah.
Some of those, we're seeing more of that.
Correct.
So those are some examples of had we really looked ahead and what the complexity throws at us. Okay, I just have to know, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to have capacity to do something.
Yeah.
Go back to the military. Look, I don't know what's going to happen in 2001, but I guarantee you, had General Perkins stood up in 1991 and saying, okay, this is what the strategy is all about. Get ready for this. And he does this in the video. There's going to be these guys. There's going to be a guy in a cave. They're going to have box cutters. It's like, so there's going to be 2 million people with box cutters invading. No, there's going to be 10. Like, they'd throw him out, right? Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
But that's exactly the world that came upon us.
Yeah.
Right? So this certainty of, I know what the future is, and it's this big land battle. It's cyber now, right? We may lose or win and never have an explosion.
Yeah.
Right? So a bigger strategic example, but there's stuff happening that is, let me throw AI at you.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. I was sitting with some drone guys, drone execs 2 days ago, and the pace of change in artificial intelligence, not only in the drone world, but like in the insurance world. And he said in 10 years, there'll be no insurance agents. It'll all be online. AI will figure it out. Mortgage applications, HR applications now, AI, scary as hell. I saw that movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger was in it. I didn't like it, right? So who planned for that? Well, you need to start planning for that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where sometimes the complexity equals paralysis.
Totally.
Right? Because it's like,
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my head around what could be coming. So I'm just not going to plan for it.
Yeah, so okay, look, I know autonomous vehicles are coming, right? The technologies are already there. I know electric vehicles are coming. They're already here. You'll deal with some union issues. You'll get that figured out.
Yeah.
How about electric autonomous vehicles that are programming themselves once you implement the plan to do the dirt? Oh my gosh.
What's coming?
It's coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you say it's not, then
paralysis. It's
paralysis. It's
Yeah.
denial. But I think and it doesn't even have to be that that extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, the complexity can be much simpler, and the unknowns can be things that I think people can relate to a lot more. Just this week in Arizona, we had, it's not going to sound like much for most people, but we had 4 inches of rain in parts of the valley over a 3 to 4 day period.
Yeah, we call that Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. But that's over a half year's rain for us.
Yes.
So, in Raleigh, that would be like getting 30 inches of rain over a weekend.
Right.
That'd be crazy. Like, that happens. What happens if your building gets flooded and you lose your server? And like, complexity happens all the time. There's a fire, an unknown thing. Hey, our building burned down. How are we going to survive? So all these things, I think, are very relatable. And I think the VUCA of construction is obviously at the project level.
Yep.
But I think just in a business, we operate all the time. I mean, crazy stories like, executives who fly airplanes, and there's one who was a BuildWeb partner, and one of the executives, just his plane went down, and all of a sudden they're gone.
Happens.
And was there succession planning? Was there not? All that stuff. So, all right. So vision.
Vision. Why, right? Look, I don't know what's going to happen, but that's where we're going, and that's who we are. Don't care if it's foggy. That's where we're going to end up. Now, that is as much directional as it is conceptual, for example, and you put the values in there, right? Look, I don't care what happens. This is who we are, right? We operate with integrity, whatever. This is foundational of who we are. It doesn't matter what happens, right? So if you look at the American military, this is who we are. We do operate as the world's cop a little bit. We are the beacon of freedom. People keep coming to the United States, right? It's not because it's a bad place. As bad as this place is, according to some people, it's the best place on the face of the earth. Our values and our vision, that beacon on the hill. Look, there's issues. I get that. But the dream remains, right? Of liberty, pursuit of happiness, equality for all. The reason there's dissatisfaction is some of that happened. We haven't given up on the dream, right? People keep coming. People are dissatisfied with the dream, with the vision, with the values.
Yeah.
Okay, but those never changed in any of this conversation. In fact, it made the conversation even more intense because, are we really delivering on those things? Right.
So I hear you. Give me an example of vision in a construction company.
Could be a target. We're going to be a $100 million company. We'll be a $1 billion company. Yeah. Could be a target.
Which, just so you know, I do think that's good, but I'm going to challenge you that I think that's not a great vision.
I don't like it either, right? And that could be more of a BHAG, more of a goal. But here's one of we want to be the premier infrastructure contractor in the state of Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's aspirational. To some degree, you may never reach it. don't want to get into consultant bingo about
Yeah.
purpose, vision,
Yeah.
mission, et cetera. But you're right. The million, $100 million one is probably more of a mission or a
Yeah.
goal than a vision. But yeah, to be the preeminent whatever.
Yeah. I think one thing that last week we talked about that was interesting was understanding the why. So when you're coming up with a vision, really understanding the why behind, I think this is Simon Sinek if I remember right. The how, what, why.
He gets credit for everything.
Yeah.
Hate the guy.
I mean, the guy's written enough books that he probably has talked about it. So we'll just give him the credit.
Yeah.
So
but he probably got it from somebody else.
Yeah. So how, what, why?
Yeah.
Oftentimes we talk about the what, not the how or the why.
And then take it to the 5 whys, right?
Yeah.
If we talk about root cause analysis, how, what, why, to really get down to the root of that, of why do I want to be the premier infrastructure contractor and pick the date, pick the place.
Yeah, exactly.
But vision is an aspirational kind of this is who we want to be. Values, we all kind of get it. It's kind of the rules we're going to play by in our building.
Yeah.
With ultimately some level of descriptor and behavioral examples. Your definition of customer service and my definition of customer service may differ. So let's take it down to the behavior and say, this is what it looks like here.
And don't, like, when it comes to values, I feel like there's this, like, I'm supposed to say these are my values.
Yeah.
Like, don't get caught in that trap. Like, be authentic. Come up with what is your organization. Involve your team.
Yeah.
Like, this is what our vision. This is where we want to be. What are the values that are most likely to get there? Have some debate. Like, it doesn't need to be quality, integrity,
safety. Got to throw safety in there. Can't have safety.
Like the ones like clearly those are all important.
Yeah.
But be authentic. Don't
put in
just,
your own words.
Yeah. Don't just say what everyone else says.
So I think the Build With values do a really nice job of that.
They do.
Where they don't. People are our most important asset. What is it? 3x people.
Yeah.
Something like that. Light heart. The way they have portrayed them, I think, is a great example of making them your own. I know a group, a company, they have light, legacy, integrity, team, and excellence. Right? That's theirs. Right? It works for them. Yeah. Is it sexy? No. Is it memorable? Do they recognize it and play to that every single day? Yes.
Yeah. And sometimes that's just as important, because if it's memorable and you can come back to it when a situation comes up, hey, is this going to help build our legacy? No. All right. Well, then we
won't do this.
Let's not do it.
Right. So in the midst of the fog,
yep.
If I can remember light, Falconer Construction in North Carolina and Virginia, right? If I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to make a decision that's going to maintain and protect our legacy, because we trade on our reputation. Right? I don't know what's going on. Boom. Similarly, in our personal level, we raise our children to have values, right? We have our own values, right? And whatever those are, and the stronger those are, I think the stronger we are as families, individuals, and communities. So that's the vision and values thing. Now the understanding piece, I gotta, so I got that uncertainty out there. Now I gotta figure out what's going on out there, outside, and then inside. So you talk about a SWOT analysis, right? The classic strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, all that stuff. It's a great exercise. Most people don't do it well because 72 strengths and 3 weaknesses, right? It's like, oh no, you got something there, right? So doing environmental scanning, industry research. The truth is, most clients, most contractors, in my experience, they like I said, they don't really do strategic planning. They also don't do environmental scanning. They do environmental glancing. Like, oh, we know our market. Okay, well, how about every couple of years we go out and really check it? How about you take a project manager, a project engineer, and a project accountant, project assistant, whatever your word, and a superintendent, and make a little tiger team and put them in charge of understanding the water market in your market, and research it, and once a year they got to come back and give a presentation. You put another group over there, of not low level, but frontline kind of folks, not execs, and you have them understand the environmental market. So now environmental scanning is not a once every 4 years onerous process. It's kind of happening dynamically. And I've engaged the people who are at the front line to do that. As opposed to, okay, we did strategic planning 3 years ago, time to do environmental scanning. We know what our competitors are doing, let's move on. Oh my God.
It's interesting because as you talk about that, I had this experience where recently we've had some people come to us saying like, hey, we're thinking about selling. And so I've sat down with their teams and just try to understand their business, try to understand would they fit, you know, and obviously I don't make those decisions solely anymore. So so once I do that, then I have to run it up a flagpole whether or not it's even an interest right now. But the interesting part was I heard things like, we're the best. We install whatever. We install this better than anybody else.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, and I was like, that's interesting. It's an interesting claim, but okay. But then I heard,
because I thought we did.
Yeah, but then I heard, what did I hear? Oh, all of our clients love us, and we always turn our projects on time. Well, I had the opportunity to meet with 4 of their clients.
Oh my.
And the feedback was,
Not so much.
We don't really want to work with them, and most of their projects are behind schedule. And so what it made me think was, I think in construction, like you could say, well, these aren't good operators, that's why.
Right.
That's the easy thing to do. But at the same time, they've been in business, both of these have been in business for decades.
Yeah, they're keeping the lights on.
Yeah. So they're at least above
They're
par.
profitable. They're
above
profitable.
par.
Yeah.
And then you kind of start to, there's like this undertone. So for example, one of the things you hear a lot also is on bid day, oh, they're low. They forgot something. There's no way you can do it for that. And then you think like, I know we say that, I'm guilty of saying that. But then again, the low bid environment is what is predominant throughout America in public works, and the low bidders, there's plenty of them who are still in business.
Yeah.
Of course there are those aren't. So I think sometimes we aren't, like you said, when it comes to weaknesses, we're just not honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not honest when we're like, we've lost 3 of our people to competitors. We just say like, oh, they don't get it.
Yeah.
Oh, they're just chasing a buck.
Yeah.
Okay, do we know that? No. So to your point, I think environmental scanning could be much.
You talk about post jobs and after actions kind of things. Do you do them? Oh yeah, we do them. No, you don't. Right? About 30% of companies actually do them with any degree of regularity. How about this? How about an appropriate size for your organization? You hire a third-party facilitator, not me, and you bring them in to do a post job with the owner or the GC, depending on if you're the sub or not, and you do a real after action. Wow. Talk about transforming a relationship with an owner. Let's say you work with a private owner, a university, on a fairly regular basis, and you do that. What is that? You really find out what's going on, right? As opposed to knocked out another one, right? Yeah, you probably did, but was there that one thing you could have done differently?
Yeah.
And that's the understanding piece of digging deeper in to what you do and how you do it and what the environment is expecting. Do you think expectations of owner have changed in the last 18 months from when maybe they were schedule driven, get it done, to, something, if you slow play this one, I don't really mind, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to fill this Class A office space. Did you go back and check them?
Yeah.
No, we just got it done.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you could have helped them out a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. So understanding oftentimes is just glassed over. I would say.
I think so.
And I think as you're talking about this, I'm just thinking about, man, where could we do better at this? Clearly, our organization could do better at this, which is kind of exciting because I think we are seen as one of the better companies, and we can still get better.
Yeah,
so
most organizations can, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is fascinating. Good organizations want to get better. I always say it differently. I don't work with bad organizations. Why? Not because of choice, but they don't even think about hiring me.
Yeah.
Right? Good organizations want to get better. Great organizations want to get better. Mediocre, bad, they have no desire.
Yeah. So, so often though, just the understanding is like almost comes back to that approachable conversation where it's creating that approachability with your workers and then those that you work with, your clients, and then having open communication and dialogue, and just so transformative, and it's so simple once again.
But it's not tactical. It's not building. It's not putting work in place.
And as much as we don't like to admit it, we're so cost driven.
Yeah.
And so we think like, well, but Wally, you just said hire a facilitator.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to cost us money.
There was a $50 million job, hire a guy for $7,000 or whatever the number is. Right?
Yeah, even five. Like, well, it's $5,000.
Right? Yeah.
But then if you take a moment and like try and look past the knee-jerk reaction, if you went into that meeting and said, we're going to spend 50 grand, and what we're going to do is we're going to develop in that meeting 10 ways to save, or so 5,000. So it cost me 5,000. We're going to develop at least 10 ways to save $5,000.
Yeah, yeah.
I assure you, you will find at least 10 ways to save $5,000.
Yeah, and the owner, who's this nice big university, every university's building, right, is going to go, oh my God, like, this is, you're a partner here.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, sadly, I think we bifurcate, right? We have the commoditization of the industry, race to the bottom, low bid, you're just happy to keep the lights on, and then the differentiated player, right? Where, look, you're not just hitting the plus button, but you're making a little bit more. You're able to get into a negotiated work or certainly a select bid list kind of a thing. And you do have some bit of a differentiated story.
Yep.
I think every industry is really going that way to some degree. But I have to create the space and create the opportunity to create that conversation with you as the owner.
Yeah.
Which means I probably have to, get on an airplane, buy a meal, create space, play golf.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. But that doesn't happen on a Zoom call.
No, for sure. All right, so next one. The C.
Oh, communication and clarity.
Yeah.
Right? So we've done this research. We have a vision. We've done the research. Now we're refining that and communicating it across the organization.
Yeah.
So everybody gets it. Right?
I would say I like this one, and this is why I like this one, because I think a vision is great. I think values are great. But when you can provide somebody clarity through, let me show you what this looks like, and you can provide real life scenarios of, our vision is legacy.
Yeah.
Let me share with you a story from Superintendent X, where he remembered legacy was important, and this is the decision he made. This is when you leave here today and you think about light and legacy, the L in that, I want you to remember what Steve, the superintendent, did and how he created legacy by doing X.
Yep.
That to me it really does provide clarity, and it's once again, these are things that really don't cost money. Like it's very little time, but it takes time and planning and effort, and maybe things that we're not necessarily that great at, but get better at them, because that's the differentiator.
Right. So remember, clarity, right? Okay, well, I've got this complex environment. I'm in the fog. I'm not 100% sure what's really going to happen next. I'm kind of feeling my way, but I've got laser clarity on what we're about. So when the slings and arrows and the body blows come at me, I'm like, okay, not that. No, this is who we are. Now, of course, you have to be ready to change and all that, but it's not myopic, right? But this is who we are. You know who we are. Let's go back to sports, right? And we'll play football as an analogy. You talked about previously about being a linebacker and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, when you say, dog right 27, if only 6 guys have clarity on the play, ain't gonna happen. You need 11 guys who have clarity on what dog right 27 means, to include, I step off on my right foot instead of my left foot.
Yeah.
Right? That's the level of detail that these pros have.
Yeah.
Right? That I'm going to move this way and I have to take that step. And you go, wow, that UPS does it with their truck drivers, right? To gain efficiency, right? Do we do that on construction projects? Hell no, we're just moving dirt.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of times where what we think is clarity is, all right, today we're going to be working in this area, we're going to move dirt from here to here. Does everyone understand the plan?
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's go do it.
Yeah.
These SOBs don't get nothing. They can't, they're always asking me what to do, like,
Yeah.
your plan was 15 seconds and you said you're going to move dirt from here to here.
Yeah.
And do you get it?
Yeah.
And everybody's scared to say anything other than that, because if you react this way
Right.
to somebody asking a question in that meeting, how are they going to react?
Yeah, so there's your approachability thing right
Yeah.
there. We did a module on doing huddles earlier,
Yep.
right? So yeah, now all this leadership stuff starts to come together, right? The EQ to be able to have that conversation, to recognize when that conversation is turning, negative. The approachability to kind of say, hey, let's have the conversation. The process of the huddle, to roll it out and say, how much do you think we should be able to get done? And when you say, I think it's 10 yards, but I think it's 20, I don't roll my eyes at you. All of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's all coming together at this point. And then, of course, the agility.
Yep.
The ability to make a decision and move and avoid that paralysis. And it's the decision made at the lowest level possible, right? That our foremen make decisions, superintendents make decisions. They make superintendent level decisions.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll get guidance, but you're not involved in that decision.
Yeah. I mean, there can be coaching, but
Sure.
you don't have to make them. And the thing that...
By the way, if you're making that decision for the superintendent, you're the most overpaid superintendent we have.
Good point. That's a good point. And no wonder you can't think strategy,
Right.
because you're in the things you're not supposed to.
You're in the dirt.
Yeah. Agility is interesting because it's just apparent that you need to be able to do that. If you're in an uncertain environment, I mean, the only thing that you can do is try and understand, get clarity, and then move. Like you gotta be able to change.
Actually, you probe and sense.
Yeah.
Right. So think about it from a military perspective. We don't really know what's in front of us. If I have complete understanding what's in front of me, I put my attack plan together and I go.
Yeah.
If I don't really know, I probe, right? And I sense, and then I react or respond, right? It's the exact same thing here in this world that we have. Let's try this.
Yeah.
Let's try this, right? We're going to do fire remediation. Okay, I'm not going to create a $500 million division tomorrow. I'm going to go, all right, well, let's joint venture with somebody. Let's see how that goes. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. So that it's called the Cinefin framework, by the way. But you begin in this complex environment to sense and probe. Whereas in the complicated environment, you can sense and react.
Yeah.
Because that looks right. I got a consultant. I've seen one. We're drilling. I've seen stuff like this before. Once you get into those higher environments, so then once you sense and probe, then the agility to go now.
Yeah.
Right.
Now.
Here we go.
This is good stuff. So I think ultimately, where this is valuable is, we're speaking more towards senior leaders.
Absolutely.
But it also applies to at the lowest level, right? I mean,
It does.
But really, what we're saying is, hey, the people who are thinking strategically, you need to recognize all of these things, and then once you recognize that you're in a volatile, we're gonna do a test here and make sure I got it.
Yeah.
All right, so you're in a volatile environment that's uncertain. VUCA, C. Oh man, the pressure's on. Give me it. What was the C?
Complex.
Not
complicated.
complex, not complicated, and then ambiguous. So, hey, I am working in these environments, and that's just that it is.
It is.
There's no you can't change it. There's no point in lamenting over it. Sometimes it feels good, and maybe it's good to.
Yeah, but have a little pity party for a while.
A little bit.
But are you a victim or a leader?
Exactly. Great. I love it. So VUCA, or as you said, what was the other? VUCA.
Yeah, not quite sure.
I hope there's memes created about this one day. as you invest your time in this industry, speaking as somebody who's in the industry, we appreciate it. I love this industry, and I know that the people who are here joining us, they love it as well. And we're just excited about your involvement with us and helping all of us get better. And the exciting thing to me is just the fact that there's already the people that are on the Build It platform that are there,
Wow. Yeah.
that there's companies that are getting on board. That says to me, we will be better tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree.
And people like you who are investing your time and talents is appreciated, so thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. You know, I grew up, my brother and dad were Teamsters in New York City. When I'm on a job site hanging out with your foreman, it's like I'm hanging out with my brother.
Yeah.
And you know, for 20 years now, I have been committed to the industry, but this platform is phenomenal, and I'm stoked to be part of it and look forward to more conversations.
Thank you.
Cool.